JacksportsTV.com back once again. We're on a roll with MMA, and Brian Lau brings it to you like no one else can. Hey, he's got some insight on Don King, and maybe the two don't belong or don't correlate or relate or anything you want to put it, but he's got some meat for you.
Well, Don King, here's the background on Don King. Okay, I don't want to say the background because there's so much background on Don King. He's killed somebody. He served time in prison. He's an extraordinary hustler, okay? Nobody really does it better than Don King. I know Bob Arum might make the argument he does, and that's an argument you can have. As great as Dana White is, he's not yet on their level. They've been doing this since the 60s, and they might be doing it again, okay? Bob Arum, top rank, all right? They have the #1 promotion right now, company, in boxing, okay? They promote Manny Pacquiao. Everybody wants to see Pacquiao, Money Mayweather. Okay, I have my strategy as to why Floyd right now was kind of putting that fight on the back burner, and I'll break that down for you in a second. But Floyd had been under promotions, okay, doing an agreement with Golden Boy. And Golden Boy and Top Rank have a lot of beef going on. Okay, and plus Floyd has beef going on with Bob Arum, who used to promote Floyd, but Bob Arum still owes Floyd several $1 million, even though Floyd apparently owes Bob Arum like $200,000. Okay? So, negotiations, to sum this up real quick, they didn't work out. This past weekend, I talked a little bit earlier about a light heavyweight title fight that was shown on HBO, Tavares Cloud, okay, versus Glenn Johnson. Don King promoted Tavares Cloud. Floyd Mayweather was at that fight. Now, the main event was Devin Alexander. He fought, I can't remember who he fought, but nonetheless, it was a good fight. Andreas Kotelnik, okay? There's rumors going on that Money Mayweather and King met in Miami, and King is proposing to Mayweather, let me do the fight with Bob Arum, okay? Not only will you get the biggest numbers from the fight, no matter who promotes the fight, but if you have King and Arum back on the scene, that's just the ultimate icing on the cake, and it is. Those guys have dated back, going against each other in promotional battles since the 60s, okay? Both had Muhammad Ali. Both are the creme de la creme when it comes to promoters, okay? Dana White even shows love to these guys, and these guys ironically show love to Dana White, so you have that respect thing going on. I'm hoping it works out for Money Mayweather, okay? We all know Don King. Unfortunately for fighters, he finds a way to get their money.
Well, check this out. Let me ask you this. You mentioned how Dana White isn't quite on the Don King level.
No.
Does MMA need Don King, or does Dana White, is he on the way to being the next Don King? It's just taking a little time.
Well, ironically, several years ago, Don King tried to get into MMA. He tried to get in and be a promoter.
Yes. Hustler couldn't get in?
Don King tried to get in, but he was trying to sign Tito Ortiz. Okay, and Ortiz used him in a promotional wage where he can get more money under contract. He ended up ultimately getting from the UFC. But Don King recognizes that MMA is not going anywhere. They've got a great business model, okay? Dana White really does, all right? The fights, you go to a boxing match, unfortunately, and boxing's changed some of this over the past several years, there used to be a lot of time between fights. So there's some, action, whereas you watch a UFC fight, I mean, one fight's over, boom, the next one's starting within minutes. Okay, it's just a raucous more crowd. It's just so much more excitement. I've never actually seen, an MMA fight, but in person, but you see it on television. And so the entertainment value, okay, it's a different demographic. It's just more entertaining, and it's helped boxing reposition itself from a marketing standpoint, the way it promotes its fights. So they recognize that. Game recognized game. And I've heard Bob Arum, and I've heard Kathy Duva, and I've heard other people within boxing, Gary Shaw, okay, I can't remember this promoter's name off the top of my head, but obviously Don King recognized that. Don King tried to get in, but here's why, unfortunately, he couldn't get in. If Don King gets in it, okay, Dana White recognizes that fighters, are going to say, hey, listen, this is BS. I'm not getting paid anything. Why is it I'm the heavyweight champion of the world, okay? For instance, let's go back to Shane Carwin. He fought for $40,000. His worker job as an engineer. Okay, if somebody fights the Klitschko's are going to get paid like $10, $12 million. The guy that fights him, whoever it is, they're going to probably walk away with $1.5 million, on just basically that. Okay, even if that's a nobody. All right, so they're walking away with real money that you can do things. Whereas you take the taxes out of that $40,000 plus the pay-per-view, $300,000. That's really nothing. So they want to keep Don King away from fighters because of the enticement, okay? But I like that Don King is back. Don King, unfortunately, has a history, though I was talking about a little bit earlier, of taking fighters' money. How he was able to bamboozle one of my all-time favorite athletes, Mike Tyson, and reports are he somehow bamboozled $50 million from Tyson. Tyson fell for the bait, which is beyond belief. But he's not the only one. Julio Cesar Chavez, the list goes on and on and on with Don King. But you understand what you're getting into, okay? Now, Ricardo Mayorga, a Don King promoted fighter. Ricardo Mayorga, about a month ago, was going to fight under this promotion called Shine Fights, some alphabet promotion in North Carolina or South Carolina. He was going to fight a guy by the name of Den Thomas, who used to be in the UFC, okay? They were going to fight. Who knows what kind of shape Ricardo Mayorga was really in, but he was saying, listen, don't worry about it. I can get out all the moves. I'm not worried about it. And who knows if he was even training. Nonetheless, he took that fight. Ultimately, the fight didn't happen because Don King blocked him from making money in boxing. So now, you know, the fight was going to happen. Don King flew down there. He had a court order preventing the fight because he didn't allow his fighter fight in something outside of boxing because he didn't want to lose that money. Ultimately, later on this year, Ricardo Mayorga, he's patched up with Don King. He's going to be fighting Felix Sturm, probably make like $600,000. So they want to keep Don King out, but make no doubt about it. To me, Don King is good for the sport of boxing because he's a name that everybody recognizes and you have to respect. No ifs, ands, or maybes about it.
Okay, so you're hearing right here with MMA and boxing that the key names that make you pay attention are the promoters. Your Dana Whites, your Ken Shamrocks, your Don Kings, of course.
Well, okay. Ken Shamrock. Okay, I got to stop you there. Ken Shamrock is becoming that classic. He just fought about a month ago, and he has lost like 2 out of his last 8 fights. I didn't see the fight, but he got beat down. He's becoming that classic guy that is just getting stomped and won't hang it up. I don't want to say Holyfield, but speaking of Holyfield, he's fighting some guy named Sherman Tank Williams coming up. And if he wins that, apparently he's going to be fighting Vitaly Klitschko, which should get a death note wish. But Ken Shamrock was great for the sport, okay? He helped bring it to the national stage, but he's just that fighter that's going way too long right now. The recognizable names, unfortunately, are hopefully Chuck Liddell doesn't ever get back in that ring. But he became a household name. The Iceman. The Iceman was no joke. Okay, he had a style that worked in MMA. He could knock guys out and he had a great takedown defense. But truthfully, if he fought a boxer, he could put in a coffin quick because you could see his punches coming 1,000 yards away. The UFC has to find that next, that next name brand fighter and it's Brock Lesnar, the star. So thank goodness he's really there because, again, I go back to the St. Pierre's not really a big pay-per-view draw. Spider Silva's great as he isn't. Fedor Emelianenko over in Strikeforce, he had the mythical. He was arguably pound for pound the best, not only heavyweight fighter, but MMA fighter, and he lost, okay? So the fight everybody wanted to see was Fedor versus Brock Lesnar, but who knows if that's going to happen. But the great thing for the UFC is they have Brock Lesnar.
So you've heard Brian go into detail about how basically the popularity of MMA and the money-making side of it is riding on the backs of 5 or 6 fighters, and the rest of them are getting peanuts. Now, I'm thinking, as a sports fan, once these guys get tired of making very little money, they're either going to overthrow the organization and defect, or UFC is going to find some kind of way, sponsorship dollars, to put money in the pockets of these fighters across the board. Which one's going to happen first? I see the defection, because if they're not paying them now, I don't see them paying them later when they get popular.
I'm just going to tell it like it is. I don't know when the defection is going to occur, but I am going to say this, and it might wrinkle some feathers, but I'm just going to tell it just like it is, okay? If the UFC, okay, if MMA ever gets, okay, right now, if the UFC ever gets black fighters in there, I'm telling you right now, they're not going to put up with that peanut stuff. They're not going to put up with it at all, okay? So just like Deion Sanders, okay, and I'm not trying to wrinkle feathers, that's just the truth of the matter. They are not going to put up making $40,000. Which eventually, like you look at with Tiger Woods, he made everything better for golf, where now golfers are getting paid tremendous amount of cake, okay? The UFC has to have that fighter who's willing to run his mouth and get tired of stop making lunch money. These guys throw their bodies, their careers, their lives on the line, and none of them say anything. I just don't understand it. And I told you what kind of fighters will not put up with that stuff because they're going to run their mouth. They just won't do it. Chael Sonnen did it, and if he would have won, then he would have probably said, Dana, you know what? I got to get paid. This is joke. But it is what it is. You know, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I don't really know. I do know this. Stay tuned next week. We've got more fighting conversations coming up. And you got something about Vegas Showgirls?
Oh, yeah. Bring your ticket stuff from any sporting event. Baseball, football, basketball, MMA. You name it. Bring it to Vegas Showgirls. Have a great time. This is JacksportsTV.com coming at you next time.